Hi class, today we're going to learn some basics about four-quadrant graphing. We're going to go over vocabulary that has to do with graphing. We're going to label the x and y axes. We're going to remember hints on how do we remember the x and y coordinates, and then we're also going to label the four quadrants. We're going to start off with just some basic graphing vocabulary. Your graph is always going to have two axes. And the axis that is horizontal is going to be your x-axis, always, and your y-axis is going to be vertical. And the way that I remember it is that your y, the shape of the letter y, goes down just like the vertical axis goes down. You don't have to write out the whole word. You can just simply write y and x when you begin, and this helps orient your graph for the rest of the things you're going to do. We're then going to move to the middle of the graph, right here, which is called your origin, and that is the point on your graph that is 0, 0. So that's always going to be 0 on your graph. Next, we're going to label the x and y axes with numbers. So if we remember that right in the middle here is the origin of 0, we can actually just look, let's start with the x-axis, as a number line. And if this is 0 on a number line, what comes after 0? 1. Then 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. If this was a number line, the number before 0 would get into the negatives. So it would be -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on and so forth. And we're going to do the same thing for the y-axis. We're just going to visualize it as a vertical number line. So if you have 0, above 0 is 1, 2, 3. If you notice that I'm making the numbers on the lines instead of in between them, that will help us when graphing. And then down below 0 is again -1, -2, -3, and then it continues. So if you look at your origin right in the middle, this is your origin, if you notice that surrounding your origin is all ones, positive ones and negative ones, and visualizing it as a number line will help you remember how to place them when you're given a blank graph. So once you have everything labeled on your graph, you're going to be asked to plot coordinates. That means put a point somewhere on your graph. In this question, I'm asking you to plot -5 and 3. The problem is that I see two -5s on my graph. I see a -5 here, and I see a -5 here. And I see two +3s on my graph. I see +3 here and +3 here. So which -5 and which 3 are they talking about? So the way that we know is that coordinates always have an order, and it's always going to be the x-axis first and then the y-axis. And we can remember this because it's alphabetical. And it's great because it clears up any confusion that I have. If I know that my -5 is referring to my x-axis, then I look along my x-axis and I notice that I only have one -5. And if I know that the +3 is only referring to my y-axis, if I look along my y-axis, I notice that I only have one +3. So if I want to plot -5 and 3, I just follow the -5 and follow the +3 until they intersect, and that's my coordinate plotted. Lastly, in order to indicate location on the graph, we have four quadrants. So if we wanted to indicate that something was here, we label this quadrant 1. If something is located over here on the graph, we call this quadrant 2. Here on the graph would be quadrant 3. And here on the graph would be quadrant 4. Now I know that it's a little bit counterintuitive, but you could kind of remember that it makes a letter C, an uppercase C, quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. We also notice that in quadrant 1, any coordinate is going to be positive and positive. In quadrant 2, any coordinate is going to be negative and positive. In quadrant 3, any coordinate is going to be negative and negative. And in quadrant 4, the coordinates are all going to be positive and negative.
Thank you for watching.